Why is it that in an age overflowing with information, technology, and choices, people feel more trapped than ever? We can fly across the world in hours, stream knowledge from every era, talk to machines that understand our voice. Yet deep down, most of us feel disconnected, anxious, and somehow not fully in control of our own minds. That's not a coincidence. It's a paradox of the modern world. And to understand it, we need to start with a difficult but liberating idea. Your mind might not be your own. What you believe, what you fear, what you chase. It may not have come from conscious choice. From the moment you were born, your subconscious was wide open, soaking in everything. Words, emotions, cultural norms, unspoken expectations. Over time, they became your personality, your truths. But in reality, much of it was programming, installed before you even had the ability to choose. This isn't conspiracy. It's not about secret societies pulling strings in the dark. It's a social, psychological, and even spiritual mechanism that's been studied by psychologists like Carl Jung, biologists like Bruce Lipton, spiritual teachers, and even quantum physicists. It's a pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The real question is, how do we take our mind back? This video is your starting point, and at the end, I'll share with you 4 real, grounded practices that you can start using today to break free from unconscious programming and reconnect with who you actually are, not who you were told to be. If this topic speaks to something inside you, if it clicks or even makes you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Stick around. Watch until the end. And if you find value here, hit like and subscribe. It helps me keep creating content that matters and brings more people into the process of waking up. From birth to around age 7, a child's brain is mostly operating in theta wave state, a deeply receptive, dreamlike mode where the subconscious mind is wide open. It's like living in a constant state of light hypnosis. Whatever a child hears, sees, or experiences during this time tends to go straight into their core programming without much conscious filtering. That's both powerful and risky. Think about how often kids hear things like, "You're so clumsy," or "Why can't you be more like your brother?" These aren't necessarily said with cruelty. Often they're just tossed out in frustration or as jokes. But a child in the theta state doesn't process tone or intent the way adults do. They absorb the message directly. "I'm not good enough. I'm not smart. I'm a disappointment." Later in life, that programming turns into quiet but persistent beliefs that shape behavior, limit choices, and sabotage confidence, without the person ever realizing where it came from. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a former medical school professor and a leading voice in epigenetics, famously said, "You don't live your life based on your conscious wishes. You live your life based on your subconscious programming. 95% of your behavior comes from it." That statement isn't just dramatic. It's backed by neuroscience. Most of what you do each day, from how you react in conflict to how you handle success, is driven by scripts you didn't even write. And most of those scripts were installed before you knew how to spell your own name. Let's zoom out for a second. This concept isn't just scientific. It's spiritual too. Many religions recognize early childhood as a sacred time of imprinting. In Buddhism, it's often taught that karma and patterns from past lives begin to play out during this formative phase. Christianity speaks of raising a child in the way he should go, implying that foundational influence sets a lifelong course. Even in indigenous cultures, the first few years of life are seen as when the soul is most open to guidance. Different beliefs, same conclusion. Early programming matters a lot. If you're a parent, teacher, or just someone who interacts with children, this understanding should feel urgent. Kids aren't just learning colors or numbers. They're internalizing who they are. Every word and tone you use is shaping a belief system. Now, that might sound intense, but it's also a massive opportunity. Because just as negative patterns can be installed, so can empowering ones. Imagine a child who regularly hears, "You're kind, you're capable. I'm proud of you even when you make mistakes." That's not fluff. That's future-proofing. And if you're reading this and realizing, Wow, I grew up with some rough programming. You're not stuck. The subconscious can be rewritten through repetition, mindfulness, therapy, or even guided hypnosis. But acknowledging it is the first step. It's not just about childhood. It's about waking up to what's been running quietly in the background, shaping your life without your permission. So next time you see a child zoning out, daydreaming, or repeating what they just heard, don't brush it off. That's not just play. That's deep coding in action. And it might just be shaping the adult they'll become. Look at fairy tales. They weren't just stories to entertain kids before bedtime. They were subtle blueprints. Be obedient, and you'll be rewarded. Step outside the village, and monsters will eat you. These themes show up again and again, wrapped in magical plots and colorful characters. But underneath the fantasy, the message is clear. Play it safe, follow the rules, don't question too much. Not exactly a recipe for bold thinkers or curious minds. That repetition is no accident. It's how the frequency principle works. In simple terms, what we hear, see, or feel over and over again becomes real to us. It's resonance. When a message keeps showing up, whether in a bedtime story or on a screen, it starts to echo in our consciousness. Over time, those echoes solidify into beliefs. I must please others to be loved. The world is dangerous outside my comfort zone. These ideas may not be taught directly, but they get absorbed just the same. Now fast forward to modern media. Kids aren't just listening to fairy tales anymore. They're watching YouTube, scrolling TikTok, streaming Disney+. But guess what hasn't changed? The programming. Sure, the visuals are shinier, and the stories might feel more diverse, but many of the same messages sneak through. Conformity is rewarded. Difference is quirky but rarely celebrated. External validation is everything. Even so-called empowering shows often wrap independence in a neat bow of consumerism or shallow self-expression. So here's the uncomfortable question. Should we keep handing down the same mental templates from one generation to the next? Are we educating children to think for themselves, or just conditioning them to fit into a system that's more comfortable with obedience than curiosity? There's a real cost to programming kids with rigid narratives. When we overemphasize fitting in and discourage questioning, we raise people who doubt their own inner intelligence, people who seek approval before trusting their own instincts, people who hesitate to try something new because, what if it's not safe? And that's not just a childhood issue. It echoes into adulthood, into relationships, careers, creativity, everything. But it doesn't have to be that way. Conscious programming, when understood, becomes a tool, not a trap. Instead of feeding children endless stories that reward passivity and fear of the unknown, we can tell stories that inspire exploration, self-trust, and open-mindedness. We can shift from be good and follow the rules to ask questions, think deeply, discover your own truth. If you're a parent, educator, or content creator, this is your moment. You're not just passing along information, you're shaping consciousness. The stories you tell, the words you repeat, the tone you use, they all echo longer than you think. And if you're someone unpacking your own internal programming, take a breath. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. So the next time you hear a familiar phrase, see a popular storyline, or feel the tug of a belief you didn't choose, pause. Ask yourself, is this shaping who I am, or limiting who I could be? If fairy tales once planted the seeds of obedience and fear of the unknown, today's version is far more complex and far more effective. The stories haven't gone away. They've just moved to your screen, optimized by algorithms, scaled by data, and fine-tuned to your every scroll. Modern emotional manipulation doesn't need a bedtime story or a moral at the end. It runs on code, backed by behavioral science. The flow is disturbingly consistent. First, trigger fear or anxiety. Then, offer a simple, digestible solution. Once you click, they've got you. The goal isn't just to sell you something once. It's to train your behavior into a loop of attention, need, and purchase. You've seen it. A headline screams, "Is your home making you sick?" You panic for half a second. You click. The article outlines vague symptoms you might already have. Then it subtly pitches you a product, an air purifier, a detox tea, a subscription to clean living. That's not content. That's a funnel. A fear response funnel. Social media thrives on this exact dynamic. It doesn't just show you what you like. It shows you what keeps you hooked. Rage, envy, FOMO, sadness. Content that triggers emotional spikes keeps you engaged longer. And engagement is the currency. Google knows what you searched last night. Amazon knows what you didn't buy, but almost did. Netflix knows when you got bored, paused, rewound, rewatched. They all use that data to predict your next move, then shape it. This isn't just creepy. It's systematic. Every tap, every swipe, every moment you hesitate on a video, it's logged. Your behavior becomes a data point, then a pattern. That pattern becomes the basis for future content, future suggestions, future marketing. It's predictive programming wrapped in personalization. And here's where it gets wild. This mirrors the observer effect in quantum physics. In that theory, observing a particle affects its behavior. In the digital world, your act of clicking, a form of observation, literally changes what you see next. The reality you experience online isn't neutral. It's shaped by your past choices. What you consume becomes the basis of what you're shown, creating a feedback loop that feels natural but is anything but random. It begs the question, are you choosing your reality, or is your reality being chosen for you? What's even more disorienting is that many of us still think we're the user. We open the app, we type the query, we believe we're in control. But if the platform profits more from your attention than your satisfaction, then your behavior, not your needs, is the real product. This shift is subtle. You don't notice the moment you stop exploring freely and start moving within a curated lane. You don't realize when you stop thinking critically and start reacting automatically. But the end result is powerful. A population trained not just in what to buy, but in how to think, what to fear, and what to desire. So here's the uncomfortable question. When was the last time you had a thought that wasn't shaped by the algorithm? This isn't a call to panic. It's a call to pay attention. Just like with childhood programming, awareness breaks the spell. You don't have to delete all your apps or live off the grid, but you do have to stop being passive. Interrogate what you consume. Notice how it makes you feel. Ask who benefits from your fear, your outrage, your habits. Because in this digital fairy tale, the monster isn't outside the village. It's inside the feed. The 40-40-40 system is often sold as the path to a stable life. Work 40 hours a week for 40 years and retire on 40% of your income. It sounds responsible, even honorable. But look a little closer and it starts to resemble a trap more than a plan. One that trades the majority of your life for a promise that often doesn't deliver. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This system wasn't designed to make you free. It was designed to make you predictable, reliable, contained. Tells you what success looks like when you're allowed to rest and how much your time is worth. For many, that structure feels safe. But for others, it starts to feel like a golden cage. And what's holding the bars together? A substance more addictive than caffeine or nicotine. A steady paycheck. Let's be real. Paychecks are powerful. They're not just income, they're identity, security, and status. We're trained early to believe that a real job with benefits is the mark of adulthood. Step off that path and people get nervous. But there's a cost to that comfort. When survival is tied to a salary, questioning the system feels dangerous. So you don't. You stay. Even when it drains you. Even when it dulls you. It's no coincidence that sacred texts have warned against this for centuries. In the Bible, the idea of trading one's soul for stability comes up often. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? That wasn't just poetic language. It was a warning. Don't sell your essence for safety. Don't confuse routine with meaning. But somehow we did. Society clings to the myth that hard work equals reward. But the reality? The hardest workers, farmers, janitors, delivery drivers, often earn the least. Meanwhile, those closest to capital, not labor, reap the biggest gains. This isn't about blaming individuals. It's about recognizing that the equation we were taught is broken. So why do we keep chasing it? Because challenging it means stepping into uncertainty. It means asking, if I'm not working for money, what am I working for? And most people have no idea how to answer that. Money has become the default metric for value, the measuring stick for life decisions, the justification for putting dreams on hold. But here's a wild thought. What if money wasn't the core value of your life? What if you measured richness in time, in autonomy, in growth? What if security came not from a job title, but from knowing how to adapt, how to create, how to trust yourself? That's not easy. It's messy and unpredictable, but it's also alive. This isn't a manifesto against jobs or structure. It's a nudge to wake up, to question whether your routine is serving you or just sedating you. Are you living a life of your own design, or just fulfilling someone else's business model? Next time you feel that familiar pull, just stay a little longer. It's safe here. Ask yourself, is it safety or sedation? Is this paycheck buying freedom or leasing your time? Because if the price of stability is your soul, your creativity, your one wild life, maybe it's time to break the cage, even the golden ones. If a steady paycheck is the golden cage, then debt is the invisible chain that keeps the door shut. Even when it's wide open, you may not see it, but you feel it. In every decision, every hesitation, every dream shelved for someday when things are more stable, is there quietly steering your life. Let's start with a word we all know but rarely question: mortgage. Its Latin roots literally mean death pledge. Not a metaphor. That's the actual translation. A pledge that binds you, financially, emotionally, spiritually, for decades. It's the system's most elegant trap. Offer the illusion of ownership, while locking you into a lifetime of payments, penalties, and pressure. Debt doesn't just cost money, it costs freedom. Keeps you obedient. You think twice before quitting a job, taking a risk, or even speaking out, because there's a balance due. And that tension, that low-grade fear in the background, that's by design. The more tied you are to monthly obligations, the easier you are to control. You become risk-averse not because of who you are, but because of what you owe. Buddhist teachings often speak of attachment as the root of suffering. One quote hits especially hard here. A person with many attachments finds it difficult to attain enlightenment. The more entangled you are in relationships, in status, in debt, the harder it becomes to see clearly, let alone wake up. In that light, debt isn't just a financial burden. It's karmic. It reinforces societal karma, a loop of labor, consumption, and quiet desperation. But it doesn't have to be that way. Across the globe, cracks in the system are becoming escape routes. In Germany, communities are forming around gift economies and shared resources. In Japan, a growing number of people are rejecting corporate careers to embrace small-scale agriculture, frugal living, and intentional slowness. These aren't fringe movements anymore. They're quiet revolutions, a reminder that freedom isn't always found in having more, but in needing less. Minimalist living, ecological farming, even moneyless lifestyles might sound extreme if you're deep in the cycle, but they point to something crucial: the possibility of redefining value on your own terms. Imagine a life where your basic needs are met, not through endless work and interest payments, but through cooperation, creativity, and autonomy. That's not utopia. It's just a different way to structure life. And if that feels out of reach, start with awareness. Ask yourself, what's the true cost of what I owe? Not just in dollars, but in delayed passions, missed chances, and muted authenticity. Are you working to live, or just working to pay? Debt can be strategic, can fund growth or smooth transitions. But when it becomes your master, when it owns your time and your choices, It stops being a tool and becomes a cage. And the scariest part? Most people don't even notice the bars. So next time you hear the word freedom, don't picture a vacation or a promotion. Picture a life where you can say no, where you can change course, where you owe nothing but your truth. That's the real wealth. If debt is the silent force shaping your choices from the outside, then language is the force shaping you from within. That's why we can't talk about freedom, financial, emotional, or spiritual, without talking about the words we use every day. Because the way you speak about reality isn't just a reflection of what you think. It's how that reality gets built in the first place. Let's start with the basics. The word government, we hear it so often we don't think about what it means. But break it down. Govern means to control, and ment comes from Latin mens, meaning mind. Literally, control of the mind. Now, that might sound conspiratorial, but sit with it. Language doesn't just describe power, it enforces it. And if you've been speaking a language that was shaped to make obedience sound noble and self-doubt sound humble, you've been under a spell. Quite literally. Speaking of spells, ever wonder why we call it spelling? Because language is magic. Ask any culture with oral traditions, any priest or shaman who uses chants, any kid who whispered Bloody Mary into a mirror. Words carry vibration. They aren't neutral. Say something enough times, especially with emotion, and it begins to take form in the world, or at least in your mind. Now consider the word program. We use it casually, TV programs, school programs, software programs. But at its core, a program is a preset direction, a script for how something should behave. So when you say someone has been programmed, it's not just metaphorical, it's accurate. Schools, media, even casual conversations are constantly embedding scripts in our subconscious, telling us who we are, what to want, how to act. Modern science is catching up to what mystics have known for centuries. Words shape perception, and perception shapes reality. In NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, language is used as a direct tool to rewire thought patterns. In quantum physics, some interpretations of the observer effect suggest that our focus, what we label, what we describe, literally collapses potential outcomes into a single reality. You speak it, you see it. That's why affirmations work. Not because they're magical incantations, but because they shift your inner frequency. When you say, I am grounded, I am safe, I am powerful, you're not lying to yourself. You're laying new tracks for your nervous system to follow. You're disrupting the noise of old programming and choosing a different signal. Same goes for mantras in meditation. It's not about the words themselves. It's about the vibration they carry and the intention you feed them. But the flip side is just as real. How many times have you told yourself, I'm bad with money, or I'm not creative, or I'll never get out of this? These aren't throwaway phrases. They're spells. And the more often you say them, the deeper they dig into your identity. Eventually, they become facts, not because they're true, but because you've repeated them into truth. So here's the challenge. Listen to how you speak, not just to others, but to yourself. What spells are you casting without even realizing it? You don't need to wait for a retreat or a full moon to start shifting your language. Try this right now. Replace I have to with I choose to. Replace I'm stuck with I'm in the process of changing. These aren't cute tricks. They're quantum tweaks. Tiny frequency shifts that, over time, change how your reality responds to you. Words aren't just tools. They're architects. They carve out the mental and energetic blueprints we live inside. And once you realize that, you don't just become more mindful, you become more powerful. Because the real magic is in your mouth. In the 1960s, a doctor named Masaru Emoto began experimenting with water crystals. He exposed water to different words, sounds, and intentions, then froze it to observe the crystal formations. What he found was stunning. Water exposed to classical music or loving words formed elegant, symmetrical patterns. Water exposed to harsh sounds or negative speech became chaotic, fragmented. Now consider this, your body is over 70% water. If sound can do that to a glass of water, what's it doing to you? That question becomes even more relevant when we talk about frequency. One of the most hotly debated examples is the tuning standard for music. Most modern music is tuned to 440 Hz, a frequency that, according to some research in cymatics, the study of sound vibrations on matter, creates disordered geometric patterns. In contrast, music tuned to 432 Hz produces clear, balanced, harmonious shapes. It resonates more deeply with the natural frequency of Earth, sometimes referred to as the heartbeat of the planet. The shift from 432 Hz to 440 Hz didn't just happen by accident. It was standardized in the 20th century, and some theorists argue that this change subtly agitates the nervous system, pulling people slightly out of sync with their intuitive, grounded selves. Sound dramatic? Maybe. But when you layer that frequency exposure on top of a world flooded with electronic devices emitting artificial EMFs, the cumulative effect on the human energy field becomes hard to ignore. Every phone, every Wi-Fi router, every Bluetooth signal, it all emits invisible frequencies. These signals aren't bad in a moral sense, but they aren't neutral either. Studies have shown that chronic exposure to high-frequency EMFs can disturb brainwave patterns, increase cortisol levels, and lower melatonin. In simpler terms, your sleep, mood, attention span, and intuition all take a hit. This isn't just science. Ancient wisdom systems knew this long before. We had the language to measure hertz. In Hindu tradition, the sacred syllable Om is believed to be the sound of the universe itself, a cosmic frequency that aligns the body and mind with the natural order. Meditating on Om, or spending time in silence, isn't about being spiritual in a vague sense. It's literally about recalibrating your nervous system to a more coherent state. When we talk about energy fields, we're not getting mystical. We're talking bioelectric fields, frequencies, and resonance. Just like a guitar string vibrates in response to certain notes, your body and brain vibrate in response to your environment. If you're surrounded by static, both literal and emotional, it's no wonder you feel disconnected or anxious. You're out of tune. So what can you do? First, understand that protection doesn't always mean building walls. It often means creating resonance. Practices like sound bathing, immersing yourself in harmonic tones, from singing bowls, tuning forks, or specific music, can help realign your internal rhythms. Walking barefoot on natural ground, also known as earthing, allows your body to discharge built-up static energy and reconnect to Earth's natural frequency. Even small habits like turning off Wi-Fi at night or stepping away from screens before bed can make a difference. Another tip: pay attention to the frequencies you allow into your space. From the media you consume to the music you play in the background, you're constantly being bathed in vibration. Choose sounds and environments that feel centering, not draining. You don't need to escape technology to stay balanced, but you do need to counteract its effects with intention. In this digital age, the real battle isn't always visible. It's a war of frequency between noise and clarity, distraction and presence, chaos and coherence. And the best part? You're not powerless. You're a tuning fork. You can choose what you resonate with. And in that choice lies the power to shift not just your mood, but your entire reality. After everything we've explored, how your mind is programmed, how media, money, language, and frequency shape your experience, the next question is obvious. So what now? Now comes the real work, the inner work, because awakening isn't about collecting new knowledge or stacking up spiritual quotes. It's about letting go of the illusions you thought were truth. It's unlearning. It's peeling off the layers of conditioning until what's left is something raw, real, and fully yours. Carl Jung nailed it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, It will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people live on autopilot, reacting to life with behaviors and beliefs they never consciously chose. Freedom starts the moment you realize that, and then decide to do something about it. Here's the core shift. Freedom isn't a destination. It's not a house on a hill, a certain income, or a passport full of stamps. Real freedom is a state of being, the ability to choose who you are in every moment, to respond instead of react, to rewrite the script instead of reciting the one you were given. This is where quantum consciousness comes in. In quantum theory, the observer plays a central role. What you focus on collapses potential into reality. That's not just poetic. It's literal physics. You're not just watching life happen. You're shaping it with your attention, your intention, your beliefs. You're both the screenwriter and the actor. So what story are you choosing to live out? Let's make this practical, because this isn't just philosophy, it's a practice. And here's one you can start right now. Daily Reboot, a self-reprogramming practice, 10 to 15 minutes. Step 1, awareness, 3 minutes. Find a quiet space. Sit down. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, what thoughts have I repeated today? What emotion has been dominant in my body? Don't judge, just observe. You're collecting data on your internal programming. Step 2, disruption, 2 minutes. Take one limiting belief you noticed. For example, I'm not good enough. Say it out loud. Feel how your body reacts. Now challenge it. Say, is this mine or something I absorbed? Then say out loud, I choose to let this go. Take a deep breath and imagine the belief dissolving in smoke. Step 3, rewriting, 5 minutes. Now speak a new belief, something empowering, present tense, and felt. Examples, I trust myself. I create my own path. I am safe to be who I am. Repeat it slowly, 10 times. Out loud if possible. Let the words land. This is not about thinking positive. It's about writing a new script and installing it into your energetic system. Step 4, integration, 3 to 5 minutes. Visualize yourself living as this new version of you. What are you doing? How do you move, speak, decide? Let the scene play out in your mind, but feel it in your body. This is your quantum rehearsal. You're aligning thought plus emotion plus imagination. The formula for creation. Do this daily. It's not flashy. No app, no subscription, no guru required. Just you choosing to become conscious. Because you don't become free. You practice freedom until it becomes your baseline. And here's the truth most systems don't want you to know. You can wake up at any time. You can start over as many times as you need. The moment you say, I no longer consent to being programmed, the entire game changes. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or perfect, but it becomes yours. You'll still have bills, still interact with media, still live in a noisy world, but you'll move through it differently, clearer, lighter, grounded in the knowledge that you are no longer the puppet. You are the one pulling the strings. So next time you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or like your life isn't your own, remember, that's just old code running. Pause, breathe, choose again. Freedom isn't out there. It's you, unfiltered, unshackled, and fully aware. They don't need to lock you in a cage. They just need you to believe you can't leave. That's the real trick. The game isn't won by force. It's won by belief. Once you think you're limited, they've already won. But here's the truth. Every conscious action you take is a cut through that invisible script. Every time you pause before reacting, question a headline, unplug for an hour, sit in silence, breathe with intention, you're breaking the loop. You're reclaiming your power. This isn't about going to war with the system. It's about stepping out of the trance. Start simple. Limit your time on social media. Be ruthless with what you consume. Choose silence over noise. Learn to meditate even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Walk barefoot. Grow something. Talk to people face to face. Remember what real connection feels like. Because you don't need to change the world. You just need to remember who you are. If this series sparked something in you, if it helped you see things differently or feel a little more awake, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, subscribe, not just for the algorithm, but because someone else might need this reminder too. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're just remembering. Welcome back.